welcome to Gestatten Sie. My name is Ulrich Eid, and I talk to creatives all over the world about whatever they're passionate about. This week, I got to talk to Mauro Gatti, an Italian creative living in LA now. He moved there from New York just a couple months ago, I think so. He's a really interesting creative who's done all kinds of different things. He's explored like just doing illustrations as a child. He's worked as a creative director with huge brands and working in the startup now. And all over that time, he's always kind of like had this passion for creating his own thing. That's also what we talked about, his creative journey, also his like biggest and longest project now, the Happy Broadcast, where he tries to bring good news to people on social media. That's also why we talked about technology and how he tries to make the world, and social media especially, a little bit of a nicer place. I thought it was a really beautiful and inspiring conversation. Big thank you to the Landesinnovation der Berufsfotografie for the support of this podcast. And now let's get into my conversation with Mauro.
I thought coughing was the start of the show. It's not clapping. It's like
that's a perfect start into the show. So how's it going? It's really good to have you here on the pod.
Thank you. I'm doing great. It's a holiday, you know. It's a great start of the day. Having a chat.
Yeah, I think it's always good to start the day. I mean, for you, it's the beginning of the day. For me, it's the afternoon. But still start the day with a good conversation and talking about creativity and stuff. There's probably worse ways to start the day for sure.
Absolutely. So let's start. Let's do it.
Sure. Would you mind just introducing yourself real quick? I mean, you're Mauro Gatti. How do you pronounce it correctly? You're Italian, so.
That's a challenge after many years in the US. Like different countries, different ways of like pronouncing the R. So in Europe we can roll it. So you say Mauro, and it's it's very sensual. You know, it's like a very sexy name. And then you come to the US and it's like Moro. You know. Because they cannot pronounce the R. So again, the normal pronunciation will be Mauro. But you know, my name, has been butchered in every possible way since I moved here. So now I'm like whatever. So I have people even calling me Mario just because.
Really?
Yeah. I had plenty of meetings where people come in and say, good to see you, Mario. And, you know, any other person would say, like, no, my name is not Mario, it's Mauro. But after, I don't even know, like 12, 13 years, I'm just like, yeah, it's fine. I'm Mario. It's not a big deal, you know. So,
do you feel more like a Mauro now than in the beginning before you like moved to the US?
No, I feel like more Mario. I definitely feel more Mario. Yeah, I'll have to change my name when I move back. Yeah, which doesn't sound bad, to be honest.
Fulfill the whole cliche of an Italian.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'll shave my beard and just have a mustache and wear like a red hat. No, a red hat is not the right time to wear a red hat in the US now.
That's true.
It's like,
probably.
Unless there is a gigantic M on it. But like if you wear a red hat and people look at you from behind, they might think, like you're MAGA.
Yeah, well, probably not the right time for that right now.
Or the right time if you like it. I mean, like it's just a choice. It's a choice, but I won't do it.
That's probably better that way.
Yeah.
So one question I kind of thought before this interview right now was, I mean, you've done so many things. Also growing up in Italy, do you remember, was there a certain thing you wanted to become as a child? Or was it always clear? I've kind of been thinking about, how do you find the path you want to take in life? And especially with you, I mean, we've talked before, and your life has taken so many different paths over the years. And I was kind of interested in where it all started and what your first idea of what your life or what you would like your life to look like was and where it all started, kind of.
That's a very good question. The I feel like that the interesting thing is that every generation, like when you're born in a specific time, there are like jobs that exist and jobs that don't exist, and now we're like I feel like in the same, time of like period, like um AI will probably remove a lot of jobs, but it will also create a lot of opportunities, and people born in this time, they don't know, like it's gonna be a surprising time for better or worse. It was the
Mm-hmm.
same for me. Like I'm 47, so I was born in a time with no mobile phones, no internet, rotary phones, the one with the
Oh
circle
yeah.
on it that made that like interesting sound, like
Took forever.
each single digit or number, not a digit because there was no button. You had to like rotate, these like
Yeah.
little wheel. So when I was born, the jobs that we had were like pretty much like tied to what existed. So as a child, I really, I really loved to draw. It
Mm-hmm.
was like an outlet for my creativity. So, and the job that existed for someone that liked to draw were, you know, drawing comic books, or maybe potentially work in advertising, like watching the TV, you had animation or, but I knew I didn't really like to do long format animation. I was more into the, you know, drawing small, short, funny things. But
Mm-hmm.
that was like, like, yeah, when you're in school, when you're like in middle school or you're fantasizing, you don't want to be an accountant, or a professor, at that age. I was more like, I want to draw comics. And then I think that uh, I kind of saw this show on TV and it was called ER. This is like prehistory, or like the show that made George Clooney famous.
Oh wow.
And it was
Mm-hmm.
like pretty much like a soap opera in an emergency room in the United States. And I was like, I think I wanna be a doctor. But it was just like the the sort of um fascination for, fiction, So
Mm-hmm.
it was very like um, you know, I don't know, like there were like things there that made being a doctor look cool, and then that the reality is very different, but you are at an age where you're removed from reality. You're just like, oh my god, that's so cool. It's like watching a show on like cops in the United States, like, and you're like, oh my god, I'm on a motorbike on the 405 in Los Angeles. It's the best thing, and then it's the reality, and it's just like not that cool. Um, so that's what I wanted to do for a few years. And then, I remember that we had a doctor in my family and I talked to him, and immediately that thing destroyed this like fantasy
Oh
of
really?
like,
Do you
yeah,
remember what it was?
no, it was like the long hours. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, years and years and years of a friendship. And it was like the gruesome reality of like what you're seeing every day, like um and in the meanwhile, while my fantasy was like crumbling down, um I remember very clearly that I was not a computer person, and for whatever reason my brother had a computer and my brother like really hated technology. So
Oh
I was
really?
just like, yeah, like he really didn't like it. He was like a salesperson, so he was like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to interact with people and I want to sell things, while I was more like, no, I want to be alone in a bedroom with a with a computer for like 20 hours. So I started using the computer, and I remember that it was just like love at first sight. Like for me, it was like a natural extension of, you know, myself. Like it was just
Mm-hmm.
like an amazing tool for me to just like turn my drawings into something, or starting to learn animation. And so, and that was even before internet. It was still like where computers were just computers, and you had games and you had software. It was a kind of a solitary experience. And it was
Mm-hmm.
not solitary when you were playing, because you had LAN parties, but you really needed to bring your computer to a friend's house and connect them with a cable, and then you
Yeah, and
could
remembering the
play.
big ass computers from
Yeah,
back in the days.
yeah.
That's like,
Um, so that's the first time that I was like, this is the job that I wanted to do. But I come from a small town, and I was also like, who's doing a job like this? What do I need to do? And then internet internet came, and it made it so easy to just connect with other people. And at a point realize, like, whoa, like this is the coolest thing ever. Again, now we give internet for granted, like we cannot exist without
mm,
internet. And the other morning I was talking to my friend. We play games, and there was an update of like 7 GB, and it was like 5 minutes to download it. And we
okay.
were just like, this is insane, because we remember when, you had an update and it was like, 46 hours to download something, or you had to download like a song, and it was literally
Mm,
like 10 hours to download like a 1 minute, MP3.
yeah.
So again, that's how I feel like that's how it started. And I always tell people that, you know, it's always fascinating. It's this thing that I was saying before, you're born in a time where something doesn't exist. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
fascinating that like something just, you know, like come into the world, and then for like, I don't know, 30 years, it creates so many jobs, so many opportunities. Think of all the tech companies and all the jobs and everything and hardware and, software and opportunities that um, that idea created. So it's pretty cool.
So have you always been interested in things that you weren't or didn't really understand at first? Kind of, I mean, as you said, there wasn't really the technology about all of this like creative work, the illustrations and stuff like that. So was that kind of your motivation to figure it out and try to understand it more? Is that kind of something that went through your whole life of trying to understand something that hasn't been, I don't know, yeah, explored as much as you wanted it to be?
I would say in the digital world, definitely it is. Like I'm
Hmm.
fascinated by technology. But not technology per se. Like I don't care what's going on inside a computer. Like I just
Mm.
don't care. That's why I love a Mac, because you get it, you push a button and it works. Uh,
Understand?
I'm fascinated by the opportunity that technology
Hmm.
gives to creative people. Like it's like AI, I fully understand some of the, ethical problems that
Mm.
AI poses, and especially when it comes to creativity. But I'm fascinated by the fact that AI is an accelerator of ideas. Like
Hmm. That's for sure.
if I think at myself like 2 years ago or less, and let's say that I had an idea for a project, and that would have required me so much work to get to the point where I'm like, that's a bad idea. Like let's abandon it.
Yeah.
Like now I can do it in like, 5 hours. Like I can, it's like having like a production partner that can put things together as fast as possible and prove if an idea is, great, or, the steps that it needs. Or so, and again, I do understand all the, ethical implication, uh, as I said, when it comes to the creative output, because AI is like a model that is trained on what exists. It's not trained on what doesn't exist. And so to be
Sure.
trained on what exists, it means that like all people work, or a lot of people work is ingested, including mine. But there is a part of me that is like, just let it be. Like it's an unstoppable thing. It's what we do as
Mm-hmm.
humans. Like, you know, the way I draw is influenced by possibly, all the things that I've seen, all the books that I've read, all the cool stuff that I have in a folder called inspiration, where I draw inspiration from. AI is more blatant because, it's sometimes it does this sort of like carbon copy, or people use it
Mm-hmm.
maliciously saying, this is the work of this artist, give me something. But
Yeah.
again, like going back to the answer is like, yes, I am deeply fascinated by the possibility uh, that technology gives to creative people to just create
Mm-hmm.
more, create faster, create better. And it was the same thing with software a while ago. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember Photoshop when Photoshop didn't have like layers, just the
Yeah.
introduction of layers gave people like so much more,
Many opportunities.
opportunities
Yeah.
to create like better things. And then, internet itself, again, like internet itself like created this sort of like window on the world. So before you were sort of like creating, and it's deeply fascinating, to think that like Picasso created what he created based solely on what he knew around him. And even
Mm-hmm.
there, you can say that like he had different periods of his art that was tied to the zeitgeist of the period. So he was a cubist when cubist was the cool thing to do, like, and then he
Yeah.
moves to things that were more abstract because that was the cool thing to do. So I feel like that every period had a sort of like, again, like a creative zeitgeist that people followed. Now it's just more like, yeah, I mean, you wake up on January 1st and you have a million websites that is like the design trend of the year. So it's just easier. Um,
Yeah.
and you have like plugins and things that generate things for you, but still, it's just, again, it's just fascinating that, we vibe with creativity so much.
Yeah. I think it's way easier now to create something very similar to someone else's work because, I mean, as you said, I mean, there are thousand articles about trends of
Yeah.
like 2025, whatever. And so everyone's kind of focused on that and not trying to think about what their own idea and their own vision is. They're kind of more focused on what's everyone else doing and getting inspired by that and not, yeah, trying to
It's
understand
also,
and master their own vision sometimes.
it's
So
also
I feel like
numbers.
sometimes, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like, sometimes we forget that like now you have visibility on everything at any point at any time. It's like when my mom tells me like, oh my god, the world is so bad right now, and I'm telling her like, no, like actually the world is better. It's just that like, you can access news like now, what
Mm,
happens in a remote island in the Pacific. It's something that like 50, 60, 70 years ago was very hard because they didn't have internet. So like the news that you were seeing were mostly local or in your nation, and then you had only the major news happening. But now, like, you're like connected with everything. So it's the same for creativity. Like, again, back in the days, you were exposed to what were around you, or maybe some major trends that were going on. But now,
mm,
you can see the design of an invitation of a small trendy club in Istanbul, Turkey, uh, from your bedroom, in your phone, or before you go to sleep. Like, you're exposed to so much more, but that doesn't make creativity easier. That's always my point with people. It's like there are still creative people that are very good, and you can see that they're very good because they're creative and they innovate. They take a trend and they make it like the best. And to me, that's what creativity is, and I go back to saying like cubism. I'm sure that even at the time there were like many artists that were doing um, some art pieces in a cubist form, and most of them were average. They were just like,
Mm.
that's the trend,
Yeah.
I'll just do something. And few of them just were so good at doing it that they became famous. So I think it's the same thing for today. You have way more like average and bad creatives, and then you still have a few that just comes out as the best in the business.
What do you think, or what do you think it is like for creatives to be exposed to like the whole world of creativity? I mean, as you said before, you had like two, three, four creatives you surrounded yourselves with. You got to know them and what they thought about, and now you're kind of overwhelmed by what the whole world thinks and what everyone does. Is that an advantage for creatives to get so much more inspiration, or is it just overwhelming and you feel like you kind of need to focus more? What's your point of view on that?
See, my answer is that that's a generational thing. If you're asking
Hmm.
for my answer of, again, of a person born in the 80s, it's one thing. Um, it's like when people say like, do you think that social media is good or bad? And I'm like, I can give you my answer because I was born in a time where there was no social media, so I can make like a very clear comparison of like life before social media and life after social media. I can give you an
Yeah.
answer of what being a creative person was before social media, and but like the people that are born into social media in this social media era, that's all they know. Like, all they know is like to compare what they do with other people, to receive comments and likes on their work, and so it's an answer that I cannot give for the younger generation. For me specifically, I as everything, I have seen social media as another opportunity to learn more and show my work and gather feedback, and I am always surprised by the toxicity of the comment sections,
Mm.
um but I'm not surprised because, again, it's human nature. Like I love history. That's one of my biggest passions. And like, if you take social media and you squeeze it down to a small town in the Middle Ages, it's the same thing. Like, there were
Mm.
gossiping, there were bigotry, there were like, insulting other people. Like, I think it's been part of society. Social media, as I was saying before, for technology, just makes it like bigger. It just makes more people get into like Instagram, and seeing your work and comment on it. But also, on the other side, it gives your work a lot of visibility, and then you might have a client from the other side of the world that tells you like, I love your work, and like, let's do something together. So the I feel like the skill that we need to develop more and more, it's just like filtering. It's like
Mm.
filtering the good and the bad, and just focus more on um creating like a thicker skin. Like, if a lot of people tells me your work is bad, I hate it, you know you, you have two
Sure.
possibilities. One possibility is just to, maybe through all of these negative comments, there is something that maybe it's giving you some pointers on how to do a better job. Like,
Mm.
because there are like times where you produce something that is not good and it's bad, and like people say it's bad. Like, um but there is also like a part of you that should be like, look, I'm on my path, and my path is like filled with like wins but a lot of failures. And we have to accept that, again, we live in a world where everything is accessible and everything is public, you know if you want it to be, because there is still a
Mm.
chance that you you stay out of social media, and as an artist you just focus on maybe physical work and showing it in galleries and not on social media. But I feel like it's a little counterproductive. Again, as an artist, you want your work to be seen by a lot of people, and so that's always the compromise. But to go back to the answer, is like, for me it's a good thing. I don't
Mm.
mind, um show my work to a lot of people, even if I get like negative feedback. It's something that I am like, it's okay. Everyone has an
Do you
opinion.
think do you think your creative work has changed from when there was no social media and not like you weren't able to show it to everyone in the world to now where it's easier to like just push a button and I don't know, 500,000 people see what you've thought about a second ago?
It has definitely changed, just in terms of like fruition or exposure of my work. But um and there was a period for me in the beginning of Instagram where I really enjoyed like posting a lot on my personal page, and I had some projects that, you know I always say that there was a project, like I was posting these images of like fruit and animals combined together, that I was doing for fun. And I did it for like many, 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 yeah, weeks, to the point where people really liked it. And I was like, oh, this could be like a book. And, I
Mm-hmm.
kept doing it until my idea of book came together, and then a publisher published the book. So um that's where I feel like it's a cool thing, about social media. And then you get a little tired. Like, now I'm in a stage of my life where I don't really have to post all the time. And, when I have time and I want to do a drawing, I post it, because my energy is focused on something else, including, the happy broadcast. Like, if there is a project that I'm going to do with a specific cadence and consistency, it's just the happy broadcast. So I, again, on my personal page, as you can see, I post, like, I don't know, every 2 months, because I don't have that sort of, you know, um, urgency about like constantly showing that I'm a creative person. I just post memes and funny stuff about mental health, anxiety, and animals. Like, I use the page more as an outlet of like fun
Mm.
stuff than like art.
I think that's something that kind of like goes throughout your whole Instagram or social media usage. I mean, you've already mentioned the happy broadcast. That's what we really wanted to talk about as well, because I think it's such a beautiful project you've been doing over so many years now. So, kind of, how did that start? How did you get started with doing the happy broadcast?
Um, so the Happy Broadcast was a reaction to what was happening at the time. Like, I moved to the US during the Obama administration. And so, um, I was like hopeful in some sort of change, like of a change
Mm.
of direction. And then, like, I think after a couple of years, we had a clear change of direction in the government. And I'm not a big believer in democracy, so I just believe that, like, people vote and you have to accept it. But I feel like that the change of direction came with a lot of the so-called like fake news movement, and
Mm.
the use of media to portray things in a certain light, and to lie about your opponents, or lie about the people that do not think the same things that you believe in. And so, like, media was like harsh, like, it
Mm.
was like something that I've never experienced in my life, that every day there was something negative and something, like, lies, just a constant barrage of, like, terrible, terrible news, that were portraying society, the end of the world. If you don't do, what I'm thinking, society will like crumble and crash and so I was so stressed and I was like, how is it possible that there are not good news? I mean, how is it
Mm.
possible that at some point the world has become this like place where everything is like terrible, that the climate is so bad that we're gonna die in 10 years and like all animals are going extinct and like all of that stuff. And I was like, of course these things are happening, but there has to be something else to balance it. Like there are like so many people, so many organizations are doing amazing things. And like, why is no one highlighting those news? um and so I was like, let me just see if there are good news, or if literally just for the sake of my mental health,
Mm.
and I found them, like, again, to use a metaphor of a traditional newspaper, the bad news are in the first 10 pages and then the good news are like in the last page, just one tiny
Yeah.
column. So it wasn't easy to find them, but I found them and I was like, I have two options. I either repost them as they are, like I make a crop, I crop like
Mm.
the the news from like an online magazine and I post it, or I do something, like using my skills and my talent. And so I was like, yeah, I think I want to create like a broadcasting Instagram page with funny drawings and a caption and call it a day. Uh, and that's pretty much where the inception of the project.
How do you think did you find that energy to not be kind of like just paralyzed by all the bad news and everything happening? I mean, all the, yeah, shitty and fake news stories and whatever, and be able to go out and look for that positive news? Because I feel, especially nowadays with all the bad news, I mean, as we've still experiencing now, most people are just trying to shut off. They're overwhelmed with everything, so they just try and close their eyes and not think further than they have to. Why did you have the urge to go out there and find something better? What drove you to actually take your faith kind of in your own hands and do something against that?
So the first reaction is that I went through the shutting off, like,
Hmm.
because it's the easiest thing to do. You're like, I'm not reading
Yeah.
newspapers, I'm not reading anything. There were two issues. The first issue is that, like, no matter how hard you try that, like, screens are like omnipresent in our existence. Like everywhere you go, there are like screens, there are notifications, there is like something that pops up, or people talking about it. Like if you don't live in a cave and you go out, like people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So you can like shield yourself from bad news, but it's not really like working. The second, which was my biggest fear, is that, like, if you create this like sort of world of like toxic positivity where like all the things are good and I don't want to hear anything bad, you kind of isolate yourself from like reality. Like,
Hmm.
the point is that, like, if you don't know what's bad, you will never contribute to fix something, or like
Hmm.
to be part of like something. Usually, I always say that the good news is the solution to a bad news, pretty much.
Hmm.
So there was a bad news, something did something, and it turned it into like a good news. So that's the sort of like flow in my mind. And we could argue all day that, like, and there are like things where I am like, we cannot fix it. Like I'm sure that like the society will have to go through it and
Hmm.
will come out possibly in a better shape, but like we cannot fix
Hopefully.
it.
Yeah.
um but there are like other things that you can fix, like, and we can do like a little thing to fix it. Like, as I always say, not everyone is like the kind of person that can just like the Greta Thunberg of this world, that you can just say like, yeah, my job is like to protest or like to be an advocate
Mm-hmm.
of something. And like I could not do it, like for a million reasons, I could not do it. So the happy broadcast for me was a way to be part of a solution or to contribute. And I think that every person can find their own little thing. And for some people, is like contribute at their own little local level, and to talk at the town hall, meetings, and express some of the concern that you have on how things are run, or like some other people are advocates within their family. So they see something
Mm-hmm.
that is not good. So I think that we can all do something. I mean, we don't have to, like I
Mm-hmm.
know that for some people, like negativity and other things are very taxing on their mental health. And so they cannot do it, and it's okay. But I feel like that, you know, when you read the good news or when you read a happy broadcast post, and you see that, like, oh my God, like these people solved this thing, it just gives you a jolt of like, not positivity, in just in terms of like, you know, like, oh, that's just positive. Now I'm going to move on. Because there are like many pages that talks about good news, and they're like focus on, oh, these firefighters saved a kitty from a tree, and it's a beautiful video, and
Yeah.
it's like heartwarming. But to me, it's like an injection of dopamine that like it's
Mm-hmm.
high and goes away immediately and doesn't leave you with anything. And so then you need another animal video, another animal video, another stupid video, another, just to keep it like high. Like I
Mm-hmm.
hope that my news are more like, they give you a jolt of dopamine, but it's also they make you think a little bit about like, oh, so these people did this thing and they solved that problem. And so maybe eventually in life, when you have the opportunity of, help and support at any level, whether it's local,
Mm-hmm.
national, world, that you might say like, I'm gonna try to do my part. And again, we can argue all day. I totally understand people's position when, I don't know, when it's like, oh yeah, you should recycle plastic, and stuff like that, and the answer is always like, or when it comes to, CO2 and the emissions, and it's like, use your car less, and then they're like, dude, billionaires are flying in private jet all day. Why should they do something?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a valid, it's always like a valid
Of course.
point,
Yeah.
because you're like, why do I have to close the faucet when I brush my teeth, when they have plantations or golf courses throughout all
Mm-hmm.
California? They use so much water, and they should not be there, because you don't build a golf course in the desert. Like it's just not a smart thing to do.
So true. Yeah.
um but again, like, to me, the alternative is like, I'm not gonna do anything. And and it just doesn't work for me. I know that it works for some people, but like for me, it just doesn't work. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough to be born in a good family and have the opportunity of doing things. And for me, just like living in this like bubble of like, oh, I have what I need, I live a good life, so I don't care, doesn't work. And it's a very long answer to just say that, like, for me, the happy broadcast, it's a commitment that I do for me in the first place, because finding good news makes me more positive, but I do it for the people. So it's my way to contribute to create a better narrative for our society. And so I'm super happy when like teachers write me and say like, oh, can I print the news and, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
stick them on the
That's
wall?
amazing.
Or I have parents, that grandparents, that says like, oh, I read the news to my nephews. So to me, that's like yeah, that's a good thing to to do, using my own skills. Like, again, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a person that is chasing, like oil tanks, or on a
Yeah, but I
speedboat.
mean, everyone has their own, yeah,
Like
way.
I will never be able to do it. I'm seasick, so I will throw up all the time while people protest. But so the happy broadcast is my own way, using my own talent to do something.
Yeah, and it's an amazing project. I mean, when a friend of mine showed it to me, it's not been that long ago, but I saw it and I immediately followed it because I've been looking for some things, a page that kind of posts positive news for quite some time because I feel like everything's getting darker and darker. And from that time on, every time I'm on Instagram, it's like, yeah, news here, news there. And then all of a sudden, there's this bright, fun animation with that just positive sentence, something great or beautiful happened in the world, something good happened, some good development, something happened there. I see your post, and it's like, oh, all right, yeah, there's some bright spots out there. There's something good happening. That kind of always calms me down even if it's I don't know how often you post, like 2 or 3 times a week,
Four.
and 4 times. Oh wow, that's impressive. So yeah, every time I see it, it's like and I feel like Instagram is like, all right, here's the next news, and everything's happening so quickly, everything's going down, 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 and then there's that tiny good news out there, and it's like, all right, I'm here. I can calm down. I see something good's happening. The world is, or there are certain areas in the world where something positive happens, something good develops, and there are people out there trying to do their best to move the world into the right direction. And that gives so much hope. And especially, as you said before, just the fact that it's not just, all right, yeah, here's the kitty that was rescued from a tree. That's good for, I don't know, one person, but to see that there are people working to make the whole world a better place, working on bigger solutions for problems that are affecting everyone. That's just, yeah, makes especially my life, for example, way better now that I follow it. I mean, yeah, a little bit of an advertising block here, but
Yeah.
still, yeah. So
Please follow.
I really appreciate your project. So thank you so much for doing it. Do you
No, yeah,
think it
thank you.
has? Yeah.
I
Do you
appreciate
think
it.
it has helped you as well? Just looking for those good things out there to have a more positive view on the world yourself.
Yeah. Like I said, like I believe that I created this project very selfishly for me in the beginning, like literally
Mm-hmm.
helped me to snap out of that like negative sort of like mood and anxiety. And then again, like I think for a year I was just sharing without even expecting people to follow. I had only my friends that was following the project, so there was literally not a plan to become like a big page or like it was just like and I still do it in the same way. Like it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't changed a bit. Like it hasn't innovated, it hasn't like it's just the same simple recipe that is like an illustration and a caption. And of course, there is like a lot of work, you know, behind the curtain, because, I have to find the article, I have to fact check it. I do a lot of, you know, filtering of the news. Like I don't post everything that it's either submitted or I find because I think that some of these things, again, are, um, I don't know. Some news are just there as like clickbait, like to
Mm-hmm.
get some easy likes, and like there are like stuff that I post that are not life changing. Like I don't know, the other day I posted about that they found this like chemical compound in coffee that is tied to longevity, and some things are just I feel like that are also like interesting because I'm a big science person. I love science.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I find things that ties like food and science, like to me it's like super super fascinating because we eat every day, and sometimes it's cool to see that, like, I don't know, broccoli are linked to a better cardiovascular activity. So people might not like broccoli and they eat junk food, and then they read the news. I'm like, oh my God, maybe I should introduce broccoli in my diet. And to me, that's a good news. So not
Mm-hmm.
everything is about like, saving the world, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's that good mix that has really helped me to have a better outlook. And during the years, again, like I think I've done this project for like 6 or 7 years now.
Oh, damn. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
and I'm still happy to do it. Like, and I always say,
Mhm.
like, it's 4 news a week for 7 years. Like,
That's crazy
uh,
impressive. Yeah.
and without ever, skipping a day.
Mhm.
So whether I'm on a vacation or, I just post like a news on Monday, on Wednesday, and Friday and Sunday. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah. Did you ever get kind of burned out or lost your inspiration in doing that or your drive? I mean, doing it for that long consistently, is there any just this feeling of repetition of just doing the same over and over again? Or
I
have you
think that's
always
part of who
felt
I
that drive?
am. I think that's part of who I
Hmm.
am. I've always been that kind of person. I just enjoy doing something. Uh, And I'm telling you that again, if this was like a personal project with no ties to like good news or positivity, and it would just be one of those challenges of like, I'm drawing something every day for like a year, I think at some
Hmm.
point, yes, I will get bored because I feel like that's more tied to a sort of like personal, research or like improving your skills. The Happy Broadcast is not about, it's nothing about skills or anything. Like, as a matter of fact, I dedicate like 2 hours on a Saturday to do it, to come up
Oh,
with like
really?
4 news. I mean, during the week, I save news when I see them, but
Yeah.
like on a Saturday, I do. And so every drawing is probably like 15 minutes, like whatever I
Mm.
sketch,
Hmm.
it's good,
Yeah.
So that's the point, that it's less about my skills, or
Hmm.
anyone could do it. Like, literally, like any artist could just say. And in the past, I had guest artists here and there, and I still have them sometimes, um, because it's not about me. Like, I don't, there is not like a signature on the illustration that it's like. And again, I know that people hate it because I've done it a few times. I've used the AI. I trained the AI with my
Mm.
style, and I've done some illustration, and people were like, I'm gonna follow. You're using AI. You're not.
Really?
Yeah. And I
Did they
was,
realize or see the difference between the
yeah.
AI illustration and yours? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You can see that AI is more like literal in the, and
Hmm.
but like, I always remind people, like, do you understand that I've done this for free for 7 years? That it's
Yeah.
something that I do on my spare time. I um if people knew how many, you know, branding opportunities that I had, because when you have like, on aggregate, like more than 1 million followers, like, you have brands
Hmm.
reaching out, can you do this and can you do that? And but I just want to
For
keep
sure.
the page like clean,
Hmm.
like, and it would be very hypocritical for me to say like, oh, I am for this, and then I'm promoting like a sugary drink. Like, it will just not be what I want. So I always remind people, if I use AI once in a while, because maybe I wanted to go to a nice dinner with my girlfriend, like, just give me
Of
some
course, yeah.
slack, cut me some slack, but
Yeah.
that's going back to the comment box. People just see what they want to see, and they go hard on their
Hmm.
beliefs without even understanding the context of like me using AI train on my drawings, like not someone
Hmm.
else, like clearly my drawings, or me, using AI for a project that is intended to support people and help people. But I go back to, again, what I was saying again, like, the comment section is usually like a lot of people that are very instinctive. They don't think, they just have like a keyboard, and they just type the first thing that they think. And it's okay. It's part of the game. Like, if you are on social media,
Hmm.
you have to embrace that. And always think that, I always think that, like, I don't know, like, if a post is seen by 1 million people, like, probably the 1% that comment, is the angry one, or like, and the majority of people are just seeing the post and they're just like, oh my god, this is great, and they go on, they move on with their
For
day.
sure.
They don't say
Yeah.
like, oh, this is great, but like
Yeah.
this is a great news, but there are so many other bad news, and I'm like, try to focus on
Sure,
this
but
one
yeah.
just for today. Then tomorrow you're waking up and you can go back and seeing like all the other things, but just for one moment, like just try to focus, like but it's okay. It's also like it, as I always say, it's part of the game. If you are on social media, you have to accept the fact that, like, and you have a big community that are like a lot of
Mm,
people, and sometimes I block people, when people step
yeah.
over the line of like
Sure.
politeness and education, and they start like calling people names or having a certain attitude. I block them, like, because
Mm,
I try to foster a good community, but it's also impossible again when a million
sure. I mean, with
people.
that many
I mean,
people, of course.
imagine putting a million people, in a stadium and
Yeah,
showing
it's
them
impossible to
something.
only have good.
It's
Yeah.
it's gonna be a mess. So whether it's in real life
Mm,
or social media, I mean, you have to deal with the fact that we're humans and we have emotions, and sometimes these emotions are like delivered in a way that feels aggressive or passive aggressive or angry, and you just have to deal
and
with it.
everyone has their own stories and own
Yep.
experiences and their own experiences with certain topics. So that's also, yeah,
If you
super
grow up in a
subjective.
family, in an extremely religious family that believes in certain things, or believes that like
Mm,
the world was not created by a big bang, but like creationism, so Adam and Eve, and and they were born in that, like, you have to understand that they will have opinions that are different than yours, like, and so
mm,
just telling them that you're a bigot, you're an ignorant, is not going to do anything, because sometimes for some people that's all they know. So I feel like that, if that's my hope for the next the following generations, is that like there will be confrontation that is not like, I am in this trench, you are in that trench, and we just
yeah.
shoot at each other, but it's more like, look, let's meet in the middle and like tell me your story, like,
Mm,
where are you from, what what's your story, and
just
then,
having an open conversation.
yeah, getting to a point where you're like, I see your, and maybe you don't have to agree, but you can agree to disagree in a very nice and peaceful way. I know for sure there are like some news that I post that are very divisive, because you might have vegan on one side and meat eater on the other side, and it's gonna be hard to you know have them agree on a topic, because a vegan will never say
Sure.
like killing an animal is like a cool thing to do, um but then someone else from a different culture or religion, you know they were born into that mindset, and for them, like, the I don't know, eating meat or killing an animal, it's part of a ritual that happened for centuries. And yeah, again, divisive topic. They will always be divisive, but my hope is that the divisiveness will not become what it is nowadays. Like,
Mm,
I hate you, and I just want to be with the people that thinks the same of what I think, and
yeah.
like everyone else is wrong. But there will be a point where we're like, okay, so for the betterment of the world, we can smooth the corners. We can find
Mm,
ways to make things better. So a vegan might convince like a meat eater that eat meat every single day to just say like, you know, 1 day or 2 days a week, skip it and try chickpeas,
mm.
like, or something else,
Yeah,
and
make the
that
small
alone
steps.
will improve the state of the world so much, you know. But
Mm,
instead, it's always like you either eat meat, barbecue all day, or you're vegan. Like, it's
yeah.
so entrenched in these like opposites that it becomes harder to just find a way in the middle.
Mm. How do you try to engage that kind of a conversation to for people kind of like to meet in the middle and not be kind of like this is good and this is bad?
It's very hard. It's very hard because I don't think that I am the you know the keeper of the truth. Like
Mm-hmm.
I am just a guy that posts like good news. So I'm not a journalist. I'm not an expert on any of this subject. I'm an expert on creativity. Like
Mm-hmm.
um I just try to remind people that, again, we can have, you know healthy conversations. um so, like, again, if we were to debate like scientific or something from biology, I cannot step in the conversation because I might have like a biologist in the in the chat that is saying something, and I'm like, I have to accept it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's never about your opinion, how you deliver the opinion. Like, and so I always try to remind people to keep it on these like sort of like, you know field of being respectful and being polite. But again, I do understand that it's hard because we're all passionate, and again, because we live in the world where everyone can say whatever they want in whatever form. There is no inhibition anymore. Like, people are just super, super extremely vocal and kind of like violent in the way they address their opinion. So the happy broadcast
Mm-hmm.
is not like a safe space. Like, there are like news that the comment section is like, whoa. It's like pretty, but it's also hard to control it because it's not
That's the thing.
my I mean, it's not my job. Like, I I have other things to do during the day. I cannot just like monitor the comment section and answer,
Mm-hmm.
every single question. So there is also a
Do
part
you
of me.
ever feel do you ever feel a responsibility to kind of keep things in check, kind of keep the comments in check and make it more of a safer space than it currently is? Do you feel that's an obligation of you, or do you okay, yeah.
No, I
I
mean,
think
if
that's
I
really
have
important.
time, if I post the news and then morning I have a little bit of time, I go
Mm,
there and check the comments, and I might interject myself in a couple of things if I believe in what I posted. And
mm,
but other times I just post, like now I posted the news, I don't know what's going on. Like, so there might be like an explosion in the comment section, or it might be the most polite thing, and it's okay. Like, again, I feel like that my goal is not to moderate the comment section. My goal is to reach as many people as possible. And Even if like 10 people, I change their mood, or I change how they see the world, that's my goal. I mean, like,
mm,
comment section for me is just, I could, you know remove like or disable comments, it will be the same. Like,
yeah.
for me, it's more about for people to like, the the beautiful thing about social media is like sharing. Like, when
Mm,
you share something, when your news is shared like, tens of thousands of times, and like, it's not about the algorithm or the engagement. To me, it's just like you're sharing something that has the power of, like, again, like switching, the positivity switch in people's mind. And that's a beautiful thing. So my goal is like to highlight something that otherwise would have not been highlighted in someone's life.
mm.
So
Yeah, and I think that's what you're definitely achieving, just making some people's day a little bit better, a little bit easier. So thank you so much for doing that. I think that's also a pretty good place to leave it. I mean, we've talked for an hour and it's been really interesting. Um, Thank you so much for taking the time and just
of course.
exploring and just chatting a little bit and telling me about your thoughts and your project. It's been really, really interesting. And thank you so much for doing what you do and making especially my life a little bit nicer every second day or 4 times the week for sure.
Yeah, 4 times a week. No, thank you. I feel I keep forgetting how like nice is to talk about what you do. Like as I said in the beginning, I'm very happy about spending 20 hours a day sitting on a computer and just doing my thing. So it's always nice to have an opportunity to talk about a project or how you feel about it. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking the time. All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Yeah, that was my conversation with Mauro. I thought it was a really beautiful conversation. I think all his ideas and his project sound so interesting, especially the happy broadcast. Since I've been following, it has made my day a lot better whenever I see the post. So thank you so much to him for taking the time and speaking to me. It's been really interesting and inspiring. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to give it a 5-star review and follow the podcast. It helps me and supports me a lot. At the end, as always, thank you so much to Male Columne for the beautiful cover and Belinda Thaler for the jingle. All right, see you next week. Bye.